Okay, it's Elul, and we're getting closer to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and everybody should be, hopefully, looking for ways that they could improve themselves in their relationship with Hashem during this critical time. So I want to give you some food for thought. In this generation, you can't tell people what to do anymore. That's the rule. But you could give people food for thought and hopefully attain l'chochem yakamod. There's a very interesting chazal, which has been highly, highly misunderstood and misused. Right? It's a pasuk in Tehillim, Kuf Yotes Kuf Chafav. The pasuk says, "Eis las lo Hashem hefer Torasecha." There's a time to do for Hashem. Be made for His Torah. And at first glance, it sounds like almost startling, right? You can do something for Hashem by getting rid of His Torah. And a number of groups throughout the ages, especially in recent history, have done just that. They said, Judaism, Orthodox Judaism, it's too difficult. In America, right, I think there's supposedly thousands of pairs of tefillin at the entrance to New York, where people threw their tefillin overboard. Hey, for Torah Sech, you can't keep Torah the way it's always been kept, so let's be made for it. So Chas v'Shalom, that's obviously not what it means. So what does it mean? So the Mishnah in Brachos, Nun Daled and Aleph, it says that Boaz made a takana. Boaz boa mi beis lechem, and he says Hashem imochem, Yivrecha Hashem, Hashem imcha. Right? He made a takana to mevarech Klal Jews with the Shem Hashem. Right? Shem Hashem. So on that, and the pasuk and the Gemara and the Mishnah brings the pasuk. Eis las Hashem hefer Torasecha. So what's that all about? It says Rashi something interesting like this. He said like this. It's the last Rashi on the Mishnah in Nindal and Ralph. He says, "Pamim shemavatlin divrei Torah k'dei las Hashem." You could actually mavatal Torah, and that's for the sake of Hashem, right? Avzeh, this person who's using Shem Hashem to be mavakesh shalom, hamiskaven l'shalom shalom chavero zeratzon shemokam. Hashem wants people to say hello. Are you aware of this? You know this? Right? I had some friends actually when I was a bacher. There was two guys who owned a Svarim store in near Zichron Moshe, and they put out a sefer called Amir Shalom Kilchasei, right? And I remember I was the head of the Otzer in Torah Moshe, and I bought it, and some people got so upset with me, like, this is what you're spending your money on? Amir Shalom Kilchasei? Right? Anyway, but it was a very interesting sefer. In any event, but Hashem wants that. Hashem really wants people to say Shalom to other people. You see that even from the Rav Yochanan and others, they were very makbid on that, right? So this person, miskaven l'shol shalom chavero, zeratzon shalom, Hashem wants that. Because it says, Baka shalom redfeu, mutter lahafer Torah lasos davar nira aser. You can be made for a Torah and do something which looks like it's aser, right? So it's a little bit of a stira here in Rashi, because at the end of Rashi it says, you do something which looks aser. It's not really aser, it looks aser. And the beginning of Rashi says, no, you mabatal divrei Torah. So that do Hashem. So we have to say is that Morris Ayin, Chashad, all these things, that's also Torah. Right? That's also halachas. There's Gemaras about that. And yet, so we want Kilu, the Torah, the Mishnah is telling us, we want you to mavatal this din of doing something which looks problematic for the sake of the Torah and for the sake of Hashem. So, what does that mean exactly? Right? Why should I do that? Why should I make problems? Why should I make problems? I remember once I had a similar question by Sota. It says we wipe out Hashem's name in order to make shalom. Like, how does that make shalom? By erasing Hashem's name, right? On the water? That helps? No. That makes shalom bias. It's a good question. Anyway, so I think the idea is like this. We can understand. And I had this thought, and I spoke to my Yeshiva, Sukushevsky. He liked it very much. He said, that's pshat, what Rashi means, right? Is that there's some things that people just don't take seriously, And one example is saying hello to people, right? The Gemara says, it was about Rav Yochanan, right? Even a goy, he would say shalom. Because when you say shalom to someone, right? First of all, shalom is one of Hashem's names, number one. But number two, it changes their whole day, their whole life even sometimes, Somebody thinks I'm important enough to say hello to me, good morning. I was walking, I remember it was back to the coast, so back on the coast, and I saw a whole group of 20 South Americans speaking Spanish. I don't know if they were Jewish, non-Jewish. And I said to them, Buenos dias, which is like from the 10 words of Spanish I know. And they were so happy. Like they screamed back at me, Buenos dias. No. It makes people it gives them such simcha. This is like a really, really important thing. But how do we get, people don't take it so seriously. Like the guy who criticized, this is what you're spending money on? Buy a book about, Hilchos Nidor or Hilchos Kashrus. Those are important halachas, Kol Torah's Chaim spends 2 years, 3 years on it all day, Ewan. But how many kolim spend time on saying shalom to people? How much time is spent, Can we get Yarchei Kalam maybe about it? Okay, right? So how do we do this? How do we, Reb Revda used to say, he says, the people are very machmir when it comes to saying hello. They make a gzeira to Tisha B'Av. They're afraid if they say hello during the year, they might come to say hello on Tisha B'Av, right, where it's usher. So, Mamela, they're machmir the whole year, maybe. Okay. I was in Cincinnati once. I was walking to the mikvah, right? And I think I said hello to somebody, not a Jew there. And he says, why don't any of the brothers say hello to us? Like he was telling, like they don't say hello. So, who was it? Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. The nuns, they said, like, who was the only one who spoke to us was Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. He said, good morning to them. Okay. But anyway, so how do we do this? So the Gemara is being megala, right? The soda dover, right? The soda dover. How do we show that it's really, really important to Bokesh? And he brings the Bokesh Shalom Rafi. You have to search for it, and you have to rodif. That's really rodif. Pursue Shalom, right? The way we do it is by being matter something which just looks like it's really chamor, right? Lo tisa, Shem Hashem l'shav. Gemara Shua says that Shua Shav, the whole world shook when Hashem said the Isra of Shua Shav. Using Hashem's name is something very, very serious, right? But Chazal wanted us to do something which looks like it's a davar Isra, right? In order to strengthen L'man Hashem. Right, in order to strengthen L'man Hashem. And therefore, they were matter using the Shem Hashem to say Shalom. I asked Rav Tzvi Kozlowski, he said, Shalom itself is Shem Hashem. I said, why don't we do it today? I think Sfardim do. Sfardim sometimes give people brachas with Shem Hashem, no? I think so. Ashkenazim, it's not so common, but Sfardim, yes. Yeah. So that's the thing. We wanted people to strengthen to the idea of Bokesh Shalom Redfeu. So they were matter something which looked like it was a davar aser in order to strengthen this idea, and that's what Rashi is saying in Finis Daiti. We could read it again here. Rashi is saying, right? Pamim shemavatl divrei Torah k'dei lasos Hashem. We weaken something in Torah mavatl. We'll see. It's not really mavatl. It's only makes it look like a bittul. Hashem wants you to say hello to people. Right? It's mutter to do it. But why? That's Vashdate. Because that shows how important it is. By being mefer the Divrei Torah, that's L'man Hashem. That's where he says, Mevatlan Dvar Torah Kidei Lasos L'Hashem. You're doing something for Hashem. You're strengthening what Hashem wants by doing something which looks like it's something which you shouldn't be doing, but it's so important that we mevater. It's the same thing with the wiping off erasing the name of Hashem for a sota, erasing the name of Hashem for sota, right? What's the meaning of erasing Hashem's name for sota? That shows how serious it is. In fact, the Medrash says that Gadol Hashalom shemochik Hashem, right? Gadol Hashalom mochik Hashem. We're mochik the Shem Hashem for the case of Shalom. And in fact, the omic there is that when it says ish v'isha Shalom b'neihem shchina b'neihem, right? The Torah is coming to tell you there's a bigger thing than the Shem Hashem, which is Hashem itself. If you have Shalom Bayis with your spouse, then not only do you have the Shem Hashem, but Hashem is there. So by raising the Shem Hashem, you're showing that it's a bigger thing to have Shalom Bayis, have Shem in your home, than the Shem Hashem itself. That's a bigger thing. Which Nefesh Chaim says, the only way we have to connect to Hashem is through the Shem Hashem. We don't understand who Hashem is this. We can just use his names to call out to him. But when you are erasing the Shem Hashem, you're saying, no, I prefer to have Hashem here, than to be Shalom Bayis, than Hashem. And that's the inyan, I think. And I went through this. This is about 10 sugyas in Shas. I went through it. I still need a little bit of work. But I think that's also the idea about writing down Torah Shabbal Peh. You're not supposed to, right? The whole reason for not writing down Torah Sheba'al Peh is because it's a much better Mesorah if you give it over orally, right? But I had Chalishas Adas on Shabbos, I have to tell you. I bought this biography of Rav Gershon Edelstein. Really, really good. Not a biography. It's not really a biography. It's like today's type of biography, like pictures with like 2 lines. That's what people go. And it said that Rav Gershon, by 17, he knew all of Shas, almost all of Shas, right? Baal Peh, right? I think like, how much of Shas do I know Baal Peh? How much of Shas do I know Baal Peh, right? But there's been such Yeridas Adoros in the past 50, 100 years, right? Who knows anything about Peh? Especially if you have a computer, it's very hard. Because why should I know about Peh? Just put okay. But anyway, when the whole Torah Sheba'al Peh could be given over orally and remembered, then it was the right thing to do. The moment that it can't, that's called doing for Hashem, right? So the way I understand it, in the getter of the Issa of writing Torah Sheba'al Peh down, it was in order. The Issa wasn't the pula, the act of writing down Torah Sheba'al Peh. It was that it should be transmitted in a way which will best ensure the continuation, which was orally. The moment that came about, that couldn't be done anymore, would be forgotten. So it became the idea to write it down. Yeah, and Mamela, it wasn't really a faras Torah. There was no bittul Torah, right? It's something that looked like it was usher, but really it was in the same getter, according to Rashi's teaching us. But in any event, and by the way, there's Rav Nosson Adler, the Rebbe of the Chasim Sofer, never wrote in Yisrael. He had a code, he would write it, because he held you're only allowed to write Torah Sheba'al Peh as much as is needed to remember it. And he held you could remember the code. It doesn't help for the next generation though, who doesn't know the code. But in any event, the minhag has certainly been midori doros to write svarim and to continue the Mesorah of Torah Sheba'al Peh that way. Okay. Anyway, getting back to where we started, right? About it's Elul, and soon it's going to be Rosh Hashanah, and looking for things that we could really do. To say shalom to people, you see that Eis Lasem and Feir Torah Secha, it's in this category of things of forgetting Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is so big. Also, to say shalom to people, it's such a life-changing experience. And, for the past year or two, I've been doing a survey, I say hello to people and I see they just look so happy afterwards. Sometimes people are a little shocked, maybe they think you're going to ask them for money, hello, yeah, But the point is that, you say, yeah, I just wanted, there was a guy at the coast this morning, this guy with long blonde hair, walking around with his knapsack. So I said, you know what? It's Elul. I'm going to go up to him and speak to him. I said, Shalom Aleichem, how you doing? Where are you from? From Texas, Anyway, okay, he wasn't Jewish. I thought, if he's Jewish, maybe I'll send him to Yeshiva Torah, but he wasn't Jewish. So, but I said, I hope you have a great trip. And he was so happy, everybody's ignoring him, 1,000 people. And someone came up and said hello to him. Right? So this is something really, really kedai to work on. It's a different mindset, yeah? It means recognizing people outside of yourself, which is really, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter says, is the secrets to Hatzlacha on Rosh Hashanah, yeah? He says the more you include yourself in the klal and you become part of the klal, the general sibor, and not your individual self, right? The more success you'll have in Rosh Hashanah, because Hashem looks at you differently. Rosh Hashanah is really a yom of giving out tafkidim. What's going to be next year? Which kol are going to be, which chavuz are going to have, which, things, which people will you meet, all these things. So that's Rosh Hashanah is really a yom where the tafkidim are given out. This is the way the Sifsei Chaim explains it. And, right, you want to be in the more you're connected with the klal thing, a person who tries to say shalom to as many people as possible, right, he cares about the klal. Because every time you say hello, shalom to a person, you're giving them life. Rav Shishar Pincus told me, he says, Tov ma'al mechalov mi michal chalav. Yeah, the white of your teeth may milk. He says, milk keeps babies alive. And Chazal are telling us it's more important to say shalom, to recognize people, to give them chizuk. Because you don't know, I just got off the phone with a woman. It was almost an hour. This is one of the most chashur women in Yerushalayim. And she's going through this sarah, unbelievable sarahs. You wouldn't believe it, what she's going through. Yeah? And just to listen to somebody, give them direction, try to help them, right? Okay, those are important things. But you could do it in 5 seconds. Rav Noach Weinberg used to call it 10-second kiruv. You get on the bus, and you say to the bus driver, good morning, right? Or thank you. And I see a lot of people do it now. Can you imagine, all of this anti-religious propaganda, right? And I know there was a woman in Neve Yaakov. Yeah, she worked at Kupat Cholim. She wasn't religious for 1 year. She became religious. Every single person said, "Good morning. How are you doing this?" She said, "If this is what religious Jews are about, I want to be part of it." Yeah. So we have such an opportunity in such an easy way, right, to really make such an impact on people. Yeah. And Rav David Cohen told me once, he said, this is what Chazal mean, right? Ma yas adam mitzal b'chavli Mashiach, te'asek should be osek in Torah Gemilas Chasadim. So Torah, what does it mean osek? Osek in Torah Gemilas Chasadim. I was trying to figure out the next sugya. So Shabbos morning I davened and I opened up a sefer, and I started working on this. I remembered the Shach in Kuf Pei Zayin, Siv Hey, about Sveik Sveika by Dam, and then I saw the Gracie Placey, and I saw the essay Gracie Placey, Rabbi Kiva Eger, and there's a Chazon Ish. Pretty soon, it was like a few hours later, yeah? His askus in Torah means you learn without stopping on the same subject, biyun. That's his askus. What's his askus in Gemilas Chasadim, right? How do you be misasik in Gemilas Chasadim? Said Rav David Cohen, he said, care about other people. Ichpatiyut, yeah? Care about other people. You see someone, say hello, how you doing, shalom aleichem, yeah, right? Rose Leff said a beautiful idea once from the Maral. Shalom aleichem means, or shalom aleichem shalom, right? Aleichem shalom, I think, means, the Maral says, my shalom is because of you. You said something to me, shalom aleichem. I'm saying back to you, no, my shalom is because of you. Aleichem shalom, yeah? So, we have a really big opportunity. It's not a major change. It's a change in outlook. Once your outlook change, there was a Chashva Yid. He was one of the Talmidim Muhakim of the Chazon Ish. His name was Rav Yitzhak Greenberg. And when I was very young, just married, I had some issues about Shalom Bayis that I wanted to figure out. So Rav Ari Fredman sent me to Petach Tikva to speak to him. Right? It was one of the most moving experiences in my life. And he told me many, many things of great chachma, especially about marriage. But one thing he told me, he said, from Yisrael Slanter said, it's harder to change a midah than learn Shas. So he said, it's not so hard to change a midah. It's easy to change a midah. It's hard to decide you want to change the midah, right? Once it's in your head that you want to change, to make that achlata, then it's easy. One example, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he saw a sign that smoking is dangerous. He took his cigarettes, he threw them down, he never smoked again. Yeah, that was his godless, right? To make that achlata, Shabbos morning, my alarm wasn't on, and I wanted to go for Nate to get out of bed. And I was so tired, and I said, I'm deciding, I'm getting out of bed, And then I fell back asleep. I had a dream that I was doing Negelvasser and getting out of bed, and then I realized it was just a dream, So, getting out of bed, that's a tough one, right? The Yetzer Hara knows exactly. Once I had a dream, I was giving a shir Chloe, right? I was in the middle, so I back to sleep, finish just an hour later. But the point is like this. The point is you have to make that achlata. All tshuva. Tshuva is about making achlatas. They're going to change, right? And Chazal are telling us this concept of saying hello to people, it's so important that it's included in the groups of things that can be made for Torah for. So let's all try mechazik once a day. Once a day, one person. And the best one is your spouse. Yeah? The best one is spouse. Right? When you come home and see them, say, Shalom, I'm so happy to see you. Somebody told me once they did it, and their spouse got very nervous, is everything all right? And something. But eventually, it'll pay off. In any event, but it's all part of one mahalach. And the mahalach is thinking about other people besides yourself, right? Okay. I was going to say something about Brevda, but I'm going to skip it for now. It's too harsh for this generation. But the point is like this. That's the point. One person a day, just say shalom, and you'll be so amazed by the results. You want to do it more and more and more, right? And especially non-religious people, You really greet them very warmly and this and talk to, and they'll say wow, it's incredible, right? I want to be part of this. And that's what Rav Noach Weinberg called that 2-minute kiruv. Or 5-second kiruv. 5-second kiruv. Okay. Hashem should give us great siyata d'shmaya in all areas. And we should have bracha and tzlachim. We should all be zoiche to a ksiva v'chsima teva b'toch shar amcha Yisrael. Amen.